And we're back. We're live. Episode number 14. We've made it through 14 weeks. We're chuffed pretty much every single week. Literally behind the scenes before we started the pod, we were talking about like, holy crap, 14 weeks. So we should give ourselves a pat on the back, and thank you to all the listeners, subscribers. Share this to your friends or family, anyone who you think will, value this podcast. We're back again with Emily and Nathan. How are you guys doing?
Well, doing well. I'm back in
Emily's
the
back in
motherland.
Sweden, right?
Yeah, back in the motherland.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm sleep deprived because someone is shitting a kex again.
It's a week in a row, right?
This is like 10 days in a row. But now she's on solid food now, but they're just very, very frequent. But I it was my schoolboy last night. She wasn't eating, so then I kind of made her eat before bed, and that just kind of got the wheels in motion. So we went out in the snow last night twice. It snowed here as well, which was crazy.
You have to feed her, like actually put it into her mouth.
Well, yeah, because I was like, if you don't eat, then you're gonna get, we don't want you to lean at the moment. We're in a bulking phase, so you got.
When is she dieting? When is she dieting, Johnson?
Look, she looks lean, man. That photo you put on, she looks so skinny.
She's like, when she stands on her hands like that, you see these like bulging quads in her legs, and you're like, Jesus Christ, the dog's got more muscle than I have. She's only 15 kilos. She's just 15 kilos of muscle and then a rib cage.
That's insane.
So yeah, we're doing all right.
Were you still stuck yesterday, by the way, on your stories?
Pardon? Oh no. So we got stuck for about an hour.
How'd you get out?
We took the dog for a walk yesterday. Oh, do you know what? The guy came to fix the bridge. So in Runcorn, we've got this place called Wigg Island, and it's effectively a swing bridge and a small like island base. It's majority for like they planted it years ago for birds to thrive, and just basically like it's a lovely walk around this specific island. But the problem is that the swing bridge is a swing bridge, so it waits for boats to come past, and then the boats come past, the bridge turns, and then the boat goes, the bridge comes back, hunky dory. Well, on yesterday it was just a shower of shit, and the bridge stopped in the middle of the twisting and just stayed there. It was completely like broke. It didn't move. We were on the other side. We just finished our walk. I really need to get back to work. Pre's like, yeah, I've got a meeting in about an hour. We need to get back into work. And then we ended up like just staying on this island for like 45 minutes until another boat came. It twisted the other way, and then some guys in fluorescent jackets were on the other side just working out. So that was like we were going to get stuck in Runcorn. And at that point, you're like, who do you even call? Like, who fixes bridges? Like
police 999.
Yeah, it's like
my friend.
I rang my dad and he goes, just ring 101. It's not a proper emergency. And I'm like, I've got no snacks. I don't know how we're going to get off this thing. And if we're staying here, we'd have to get a helicopter off this island onto the mainland. So I think it is a bit of an emergency. But then you're like, well, is it the firemen? Because they've got those long ladders that potentially could like go over the side. But then you're like, oh well, do we just need to just like ring a mechanic? I'm not sure. So anyway, some guys in fluorescent orange, so whoever that is, came and fixed it.
Yeah, but do you remember in the States when we were on the way to Tampa, same thing happened. Who do we call then? Didn't the police come through instead? Like I don't know if it was roadside. I don't think it was roadside.
It was the insurance, so we were roadside, but the police came as well. The sheriff.
Yeah, I shot myself.
Yeah. The sheriff. But the thing is that sheriff came, and we're standing on the side of the motorway, what we call the motorway, but what they call I-89 or whatever.
Highways.
Highways, and we were on the side. And at the same time as the sheriff's talking to us, we're getting bitten alive in this long grass that we had to move the car over to. So every time you take a step, there was like creatures just crawling up your leg, these ants that were just biting the living shit out of your leg. By the time we got back in this new car and got towed away, we were both of us just like had completely red ankles from being mauled alive by ants. And the guy's like, no, you need to stand on the side. I'm like, yeah, well, if we stand at the side, we've got no legs left. And then they basically didn't care. That sheriff was the most docile person I've ever met in my life. You could run away from him as well, definitely. Any crime.
He left literally within 5 minutes. I'm thinking, where's this guy going? He goes, yeah, they'll be with you in 20 minutes. Didn't come for about an hour, and then we're like, okay, here we go.
Yeah, so like those are the ones that are really risky. Like, who do you really call? Like, yeah, okay, if it's an emergency, you got the police. If your house is burning down, like firemen or fire ladies, whichever one. Ambulance, you're about to die. Any medical conditions, cool. But then swing bridges, roadside occurrences, like what numbers are we going to call that?
Doesn't it say, like, usually it would be like, if an emergency, call this number or something? Wouldn't it, they usually say these things by these kind of stations? So
yeah, they normally have like I'll ring this thing or SOS or whatever. I tried to ring 101, which is like the non-emergency police number. It took me 15 minutes to get to talk to someone. I'm like,
because they knew it's not an emergency.
Yeah, I'm like, it's definitely not an emergency. What people are using this number for, like peeping toms. It's like, oh, someone's outside my house and they come around every single day. Like, or it's like, oh yeah, do you know what it says? They promote grassing. Like, it literally on the call it goes, if you're here to complain about someone breaking the COVID lockdown rules, it's like, who's ringing
Press
this number?
1.
You fucking snakes. You snakes. Like, keep it in the house. Go around yourself if they're being loud. Don't grass on people during COVID. Like, we're all in this shit together.
Yeah. If you'd like £10,000, please press 1 to snitch.
Like, you absolute like snakes.
Stop it. Anyone who listens to this, please don't snitch. But episode 14, the big question that we wanted to discuss today, and we've got a couple of times, and even for people who've inquired maybe in December, who wanted to start to January, fat loss phase or just transformation in general. And the question goes as, how do you start your fat loss journey? What's the X's and O's, where you're at with your psychology, your mindset. So let's start with Emily. Typically, if you'd get this question, how would you answer it to the viewers?
Well, this can go down so many avenues, right?
But yeah, that's the beauty of this question, right?
The first thing you need to ask yourself, what is your level of commitment and why do you want to do it? Because if you don't know your why, the level of commitment might waver, and your level of commitment is going to dictate the level of your success in the long term. So starting off is actually having that kind of deep talk with yourself, in a sense. Like, you need to go a little bit deeper than, oh yeah, it's January, I might as well just start now. It's like, but why now? What does it mean for you to do this? And what does it mean for you if you weren't going to go through with it? And when you answer a lot of questions like that, you can kind of lay out the foundation of, okay, I see now the start and why I start. And then I might not really know exactly how I'm going to get there. That's why you probably hire a coach, or you might do it and you have a support group, or you find information along the way. That doesn't really matter. But as long as you know where you're starting and why you're starting, the path will kind of reveal itself as you start walking onto it. So yeah, that's just for starting, I think, in terms of mindset. But let's talk more about it. I just want to hear what you guys say.
Yeah, so that's the start of the mindset. I think if you're looking at the X's and O's more mechanically, an easy way to set things up is to be successful. I believe in the short term, you want to narrow down decisions as much as possible and try and work on being more committed. As Emily mentioned, like the commitment level that you give is often then represented in the results that you give. So starting with something like setting yourself a recipe. So let's say. Basics is you times your body weight in pounds by 10. That will give you a calorie deficit, the amount of calories that you need to burn on a day-to-day, how many you need to eat on a day-to-day basis. That will give you a pretty decent rate of fat loss for most people. That does include some misdemeanors, some extra here and there, and that'll still give you some level of fat loss. Once you found those calories, your job is to make them as consistent as possible every single day. If you're super basic and if you're super unknown of what calories are, or protein is, or fats are, or carbohydrates, or any type of food sources, all you need to do is look at the back of packs, do what you're doing at the moment, type of food that you're eating, but make sure you stay close to that number. And the easy way that you can do that is just start setting a menu for your lunches, your dinners, and your breakfasts based on what you're eating already. Maybe take away the biscuits so that you get closer to that calorie number. Increase your breakfast so that you're having something in the mornings. Just all designed around sticking to that number every single day, or being as close to as possible. For most people that are taking that as a first step, you'll be moving from eating 3,000, 4,000 calories daily, or on average daily, down to in the 1,500 to nearly sub 2,000, which will give you a large effect change in the first place. So I think that will be the mechanics to start with. That's an uber basic way of doing it. You don't even need to look at macros. Don't even consider protein. Just consider how many calories you're eating daily versus where you are right now, and move it downwards over time and get better at staying closer to that number, just as you would do if you were concerned about your bank balance and wanting to spend wisely with that. You wouldn't just go and spunk it on a Ferrari. If you're looking to save money or looking to tread carefully with your £2,000 salary, you wouldn't also spend it at the beginning of the week just and then eat off baked beans for the rest of the week. You want to spread it evenly, nicely, and be as close as you can so you go without overdrawn. That would be my easy way to start.
Yeah, I think it just excuse me. I think with that one, it's very much getting more aware about your calories and just aware about what you're consuming on a day-to-day basis. Like you mentioned, someone's consuming potentially 3,000 calories plus, not necessarily knowing, oh wow, I'm actually Emily just put a little hand up like, yep, it's me right now. But if you're consuming that much and you're not aware of it, and we've seen it plenty of times, right? Application forms, consultation calls where people do mention, like, I'm eating healthy, I'm eating this. But then in reality, we know it's probably double because they've never counted calories. So if you go with the Nathan's approach there, you'll probably be a lot more aware of your calories just to begin with. And you may even drop 5 to 10 kilos quite easily, in my opinion. And then obviously going with Emily's approach as well, which is the mindset, which is 100% true. It's your goal and your why, how strong is it really? Because, the difference between people who are successful with fat loss journeys and people who aren't successful with fat loss journeys, because everyone's gone for fat loss in their life, at one time in their life or not, even probably way before we were coaches or when we were in high school or even middle school, to be honest. Like I've known clients who told me, yeah, back in 2000. And I was like, how old was I again? So I've heard clients tell me back in like 2000, 2002, where they got into the Atkins diet. So like they still had a why then, but it still has to be another why evolving. And again, the more you do, let's say your fat loss journey, you go for another fat loss journey. Your why has to evolve towards that goal. It can't just be, I want to lose weight now. It has to be bigger than just, no, I want to lose weight. Why do you want to lose weight? I think that question, the why, is a lot bigger than it has been probably in the last 5-10 years in the fitness industry. I don't remember personal trainers going, hey, what's your real why? It was just like, yeah, let's get you shredded. That's it. Yeah, let's just do it. Yeah, you guys are a great example. You've been in the industry for a long time here. Did you ask the same question to most people 10 years ago, 5 years ago, than you do now, especially with your whys?
No, I remember I used to feel a bit like, oh, can I really probe you on that? Do I really need to know you? Or like, I used to feel like that was me digging and but this is obviously this is almost a decade ago and I was younger and yeah, I lacked my own language and understanding of why I did things as well, I think sometimes, and I just felt like I was intruding on someone's life, it's like, do you really need to know? But I think the deeper you can go, the more you get out of it, and the deeper you allow someone else in, someone that you obviously trust and pay to help you, the more you can give your coach, the more benefits you're going to see from that coach, because that is really the level of help that you get. That's the level of someone being able to coach you. Coaching is not just prescribing something. Coaching is helping you through where you are to a place that you want to go, which means sometimes dealing with things that are a little bit tough to deal with. But I just wanted to say, when it comes to as well, the whole thing about every change that you want in your life, whether it's a transformation journey or anything else, it starts with awareness. It has to start with awareness. You have to know where you are today, and you have to be aware of what you do today, because that's the only way you can change your behavior. You don't change something that you don't know. You only change the things you do know. So actually being very honest about hey, I am eating like this. I am not necessarily doing all the things that I probably should be doing. That's okay. Now I can own it, and now I can start create change. So it always starts with that awareness, always.
Yeah, and the famous saying is that your shit stinks too. And it's that whole level of confirmation bias, right? It's like if you're unaware about something, so if someone was like, oh yeah, do you eat vegetables every meal? Yeah, I think I do that. And then you really check back with, do you actually eat vegetables every meal? You'd be quite surprised that you don't. But the problem is that we've conned ourselves into thinking, because it's much easier to think like that.
Some people think ketchup is a fruit.
Yeah.
They were allowed to keep pizza in the cafeterias in America because they said there was tomato sauce on the pizza, and that's a fruit.
Oh wow.
That's why they got to keep it, and that was healthy. So you don't want to take away the fruits from people.
Yeah,
So, you know,
so
the
don't
level of your
take away the
understanding.
vitamins.
What did you say?
Don't take away the vitamins.
Exactly. No, but so like the level of what you know as well might be the thing that is holding you back. Like your level of lack of knowledge or like lack of understanding of better knowledge, because it's like we all live within our levels of ignorance and arrogance, really. Until we don't know better, we can't do better. So it starts with the awareness and then the curiosity that there are other valid and reasonable options out there for me to step into and learn from and grow into, that I have to learn that they are the ones that I'm going to have to adapt to, because that's where I'm heading in my life. If I want that transformation, it means that I have to go and grab some of those fruits hanging that will actually give me a healthy lifestyle. So yeah, sorry, but I cut you off, but I just thought that pizza thing just came to my mind.
No, that's fun, because that brings back to the point that we're making about if we've just given advice, let's say, about calories, you'll be like, oh, that doesn't apply to me. You know, I only eat 1,600 a day. Or I've had like Asian ladies who don't know their food with the calories within like the rotis and the curries and the
Chevra, isn't it?
chevras. They don't know the calories because they've never had to, right? They never even understand how many grams it is. They just make it with love, and they make it with however they make for the family. They make double, obviously, because you know the families are massive, and they just make double. But their ignorance to that level of what's in their food is often to a detriment to their body composition. So if you put it this way, if you're 70 kilos and you're stepping on the scale and you're above 70 kilos, to stay at 70 kilos and not lose weight, you're eating more than 1,800, 1,900 calories on a day-to-day basis. Simple maths would say 10 times your body weight would be about 1,600 calories. That is a deficit of like nearly 1 to 2 pounds a week if you just do a diet. So therefore, to kind of reverse engineer that and put that up a bit more, to put a maintenance, you've got to be eating 1,800, 1,900 calories on average across the week to not lose weight in that week. So if you're sitting here going, oh, well, you know, that doesn't apply to me. I don't eat 3,000 calories and I just eat low calories and I still don't lose weight. But you're not eating that calorie load. You're not eating low calories, because to keep your body at 70 plus kilos, you need to eat 1,900, 2,000 calories to sustain it. Otherwise, you would be losing weight. And then you look at when you think like, okay, if people are 100 kilos plus, the amount of food that they must eat to stay at 100 kilos is 3,000, 3,500 calories on a day-to-day basis. So when you put that into consideration, when you put that outside of the confirmation bias of I don't eat too much, when the facts are the facts of maths, then you can start taking on and owning that situation that you are eating that much. You might not see it on a day-to-day basis. You may have a chicken salad for lunch, but you may also cover it in Caesar salad, a Caesar sauce, which is 200 calories, or you may come to the weekends and have 4,000 every single weekend, or once in every 5 days you have a pack of biscuits, which is 2,000 calories, which then bumps up your averages. So the biggest thing is that awareness.
I want to just, before we get off this little side thing, we have to look at your activity levels, because if we only talk calories, it's going to mess with people's head, thinking that you have to be in X caloric deficit to be with you where you are, but actually it has to be where your calories also comes out of your body. So it won't necessarily be that number is your correct one to go where you want to be. Like, and I have to pull myself here as an example. Like, I'm a woman, I weigh 50 kilos. I probably still maintain my weight about 2,500 calories, but that is because my activity levels are met, right? It's not because anything else. Like, I'm a small woman. So if we're going to go by numbers and calculating, that would be me going into a very steep deficit based on my activity levels in general, right? So
But you're consistent, consistent enough. You train very, very hard, and if we consider you not a general populace,
You're in advance.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, we need to address that as in, like, there are outliers, and everyone should still think about their own like where they are today. If you are someone who listens to this who actually don't train very much, you probably don't even hit 10,000 steps, and you don't carry a lot of muscle mass, and you might have been trying dieting for 20 years of your life already, like it's going to be very different. I actually hate to sit here and talk about calories as this set thing, because I don't believe that that's true. So now we can have like this agree to disagree in certain things, but like I genuinely think that we have to look at a bit like person to person basis to figure out what actually works, and not just go on a blank slate and say this is what you should be having.
The problem is though that the problem is that you can look at those numbers and you can look at interpersonal individualities of metabolic rate, tolerances. That we know that from the research that people are underestimating how many calories they're eating, and then you do have these amounts of burning that you're in a mathematical equation. If people eat within those numbers, they lose weight. And yes, of course, if someone has been trying to dieting, their metabolic rate may be reduced. But still, if you're eating 10 calories per pound, you're still going to lose weight. It's their adherence to those numbers that is the biggest part. And unfortunately, in my opinion, of 10 years in the game and working with everyone trying to get weight loss as much as possible, the maths will always come through. At some point, it's just how they're following it and adhering to it. That is the sensitivity. But the problem is that's the biggest sensitivity for coaching, is that you have to be able to say to your clients that you're not doing exactly what you're saying and manage that relationship. And I believe that everyone should be able to own that they eat more, and it's not about their metabolism or it's not about their mentality. It's about that if they hit the calorie threshold, they're going to lose weight, but they have to find that threshold through their own dieting. So if they're having 2 spoonfuls of sugar on top of their food's calories every single day, and they know that, it's their responsibility to take that away so that they hit the threshold. And I don't think I've run into anybody that has hit 10 calories per pound or anywhere close to and not lost weight when they've actually followed it. So from my
saying, that's not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying 10 calories per pound. That would put me in about 1,200, and that would be me going into some heavily huge deficit for me.
Yeah.
And this is why I'm just saying there are definitely, you have to look at your own standard. Like I would definitely lose shitloads of weight on 1,200 calories. Even at my leanest, I never pushed down at 1,200 calories, you know. But that doesn't mean that someone shouldn't go there at temporarily to get what they need out of it, a specific time in the diet phase. But I'm saying is, if people listen to this and go like, my magic number now is 1,200, like, no, it's not your magic number. You need to find the numbers that work for you and then tailor it from there, really. Like maybe start, if you're a lady listening to this, it could be a good place to start, but know that you probably want to also increase as you go if you are sticking to it for long term. And I'm just saying this because I work with so many ladies who have been working with coaches, and they have been on as low as 800 calories, anywhere between 8 to 1,200 calories, and they are fucked hormonally. And we can save this to another podcast, you know, because it could be a whole different topic. But like there are complications in actually dieting too hard. So
so I understand. The majority of the people, I've dealt with loads of those too, but the majority of the reasons why they're fucked is not because they're on 800 calories, it's because they took themselves so low, and then they go through that pattern of needing to go that low because they're eating over and above other parts in their week, right? They're not on 800 calories every single day. Otherwise, they'd be a stick and be 35 kilos or 38 kilos consistently. It's the nature of how they get to that point of being on 800 to 1,000 calories, because what they do is they're on 1,200 or 1,300, then they go off track and then they eat more and go 2,000, 3,000 in one day, and then the natural response is to equal it out and go lower on another day, and it ends up this vicious cycle of where they end up on 800 calories because they're trying to save or move away from eating 2,000 or 3,000 on a specific day. And I don't think there's anybody that, being on 800 calories for a period of even more than 2 or 3 weeks at a time would be incredibly tough, and I don't think many people actually do it. And I think that's what fucked people up. I think the nature of going to like 1,200 or 1,300 is fine, but it's the nature of what happens when that person falls away from that diet, and then their instant response is, shit, I've got that photo shoot in 3 weeks. Oh, shit, I need to lose that kilo this week, and then they drop their calories dramatically to wherever to make up that lost ground. And I think that's when the stuff it starts to hurt people.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I also, how many clients have you taken on in the past who have done several diets in the past?
Yeah, everyone primarily is always coming from a dieting state.
Yeah, and there are going to be physiological changes happening when someone diets many times all over. And so, yeah, it is more difficult than just talking about calories, because it has to be in a like, and I think that this is why, like, if we're looking at losing weight, it's not rocket science. Most people know, eat less, train a little bit more, etc. But how you diet is going to dictate your outcome long term, right? And also your success long term. So this is, I guess, why we are coaches, right? It's because like there are better ways of dieting than probably just thinking about calories as well. Even though we all know calories are king, calories is the most important thing, but it's more to it than just calories. And this is where I'm coming at as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I was also going to go on, you mentioned earlier about what you don't know. So, and then you can go the opposite spectrum of someone who does know a bit more, but then also their own bottleneck when they start their own fat loss journey. I've seen loads of those. It's typically the guys, and also I've seen obviously women, but mainly the guys who think they know a lot, which is like, I've done this for 15 years. Like, why do I need a coach, etc. But they never got there. Right. And I think we've also seen those people. And I think we should talk about being open-minded, especially if you're going to go and get a coach right now and say, look, I'm going to get a coach, but then if you're still your own bottleneck, you're only going to stop your own results here. So I think we should go on that as well. Have you had experiences of this, and how is someone, let's say, transformed mentally from, let's say, the beginning, that, they're their own bottleneck, they're not doing what they're asked to, and then suddenly, you know, 16 weeks, 20 weeks into their journey, they're a completely different person?
Yeah, I think there's quite a lot of people that will go down that what's it, all the gear, no idea.
Yep. All the time.
And it's good to have knowledge, and it really is that education is the forefront to be able to make better decisions, be more aware. But also for majority of people to be able to break that habitual patterns, or wherever they're sitting in their day and their routine, it does require action, and their ability to do the thing over and over again to get effectively, quote unquote, get your reps in, and be able to practice what the current habit is that they want, or the current situation that they want. So a lot of people will utilize things that they've worked for them in the past, or perceive to work in the past, forever. If someone has lost weight on keto, they will come to you and maybe want to have that bias towards utilizing keto because it worked in a way that made them feel great. And that will be kind of the bottleneck for the longer term journey, because if they're doing something in that short term to get that perceived reduction in weight, so let's say they expect to lose 2 kilos a week or 1 kilo a week, because when they did keto they did, but we know that's water weight and not really fat. Then when they come to not taking on the information and the coaching, they will want to do it their way, because they got that desired result. But for the most people, those that really do go on long term to be successful are people that like kind of park the methods that have worked for them before, to realize that potentially there's a reason why they're getting coaching again, and it's probably because that method isn't just the right one for them in the long term. So being able to switch that and be able to take on the knowledge of what didn't work for them in the past, and then being able to take steps forwards, it often dictates the journey and the result going forward.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And I think and again, we've seen the most successful ones typically, like even with me, like when I started my own fat loss journey, we can go on our own journeys as well, how we started it. But I remember I started it with the whole, like, I'm going to restrict carbohydrates and it's going to go, paleo, etc. And I had to park my methods not even as soon as I became a personal trainer, but I realized this was not sustainable for me, because there's a very short-term thing. It was great for about, 6 weeks to 12 weeks, and you feel okay about it. But then after that, you're like, what's next after this? Like, how do I avoid carbohydrates for the rest of my life? Like, what do I do here? And I think if you start a journey and you think, okay, no, I want to have a sustainable, and we hear this a lot, right? Sustainable fat loss, quite a lot. Like even I get consultations, I want sustainable fat loss. And sustainable fat loss and the journey for the long term is all about we're not excluding any sort of macros out there. We're not saying, we're going to cut out your carbohydrates fully. We're not going to cut out protein fully, or we're not going to, cut out fats fully. It's all about understanding, like, we want to have all of these foods together. But eventually, obviously, like Nathan said, calories will matter at the end of the day. And if we can manage that, we will be in a very, very good place. But let's go on our own journeys and discuss, obviously when we first started it, take away when we were personal trainers, etc. As soon as you kind of wanted to get into this journey in your own journey in the beginning, what advice would you give to yourself when you first start, or what did you do when you did start? Let's go with them.
Well, I think my first attempt at dieting was probably around 8 years ago, and I did the low carb thing, and I think I tried it for like 4 weeks, but I was fucking miserable. It doesn't work for me without carbs. I go neurotic. I become a crazy person. And then when I did my first 2 preps, what I would call like my real diet, when I actually got shredded, because I didn't get shredded on low carb, like nothing really happened, if I'm going to be honest. But I actually didn't, at that point, I actually didn't track food, or I didn't do anything. I didn't weigh my food. At that point, I lacked those skills, and I just didn't do it. I just wanted to try the no carb thing. But when I was working with a coach, it was more, looking at your macros, hitting your targets, and looking at maximizing nutrients for the calories that you are actually eating. But there was never really any like low carb days. But obviously, again, we have to look at what someone's doing. At that point, I was training 5 days a week, really heavy, and I was doing 25,000 steps on the gym floor, just training my clients. So, and I was lifting up weights for people. So the amount of actually muscular contractions in a day must have been like huge. So again, when I look back at it, at my lowest there, my coach wanted me to go to about 1200, 1250. I never did, because I couldn't do it. I was binging. All right. So it actually caused me to have a reverse effect. So I can only look at my first prep, and it was successful. Like, I looked incredible. So obviously the job got done, and I had some really good photos in the end, but the aftermath was actually not so good in me. But then I look back at this diet that I just completed like a month and a half ago. My dieting approach was very different, very, very different. But I also have to because I this time around wanted to experiment with working with the female cycle and not just be so regimented all the time. So I was actually fully aware of where I was in my cycle, fully aware of my normal symptoms around the cycle. And I was working with that. I knew when I could push a little bit more. I knew when I was allowing myself to eat a little bit more. But that again comes from the awareness and also taking that full responsibility. So I would have weeks where it looked like I wasn't progressing, but I was. And there were weeks where it looked like I was progressing, but I was not necessarily progressing any further than I was the week prior. But yeah, and I guess it's why, again, and also the way that I coach now compared to 5 years ago, it's just very different. I like to think that I feed my clients lean, I like to think that we don't have to cut someone's calories so heavily if we can get them to have good structure around their food and actually eating good food, because we can look at calories and go, right, here's your allotment, do whatever you want with it, or here is some guidelines. But if we can actually look at the quality of what people eat and looking at it as in a way of like nutrient timing and making sure that we're creating good structures, people will be able to eat more food, because the food that they eat is actually fueling their bodily processes. They're fueling their ability to perform better, and therefore we can actually get more out of them, and then they can feel better. They won't have like blood sugar management crashes. There's so many things that actually comes from thinking about how we eat, not just that we're going to eat or that we have to stick to this calorie thing. And that's just how I look at things now. And I've had huge success dieting women that I have dieted before on a lot higher calories, getting them leaner than I ever could back in the day when I gave them less food. And therefore, I'm more convinced that I like to feed my clients, but obviously still calorie matters, but there's a whole lot more depth to it than just saying, here's your target. So yeah, that's just me.
Yeah, I think processes matter as well. I think if you can get your processes in order, which obviously we think about adherence as well at the same time. You know, if you can get them to married, like it's a recipe for success for your journey overall. I think that's one thing I'll always say to people is be very, very process driven. I mean, if you are process driven, it will take care of the weight. Just if you're worried about the weight every single week, and if it's not going down, for example, have a look at what's going on with your processes first and your systems on the day to day. And
Yeah.
if they're not aligning, you know, you can obviously have a look, and you know, as coaches we're quick to obviously point this out usually to clients. If you know, look, here's your processes, this is what's happened, it's all good, complain about it right now, but again, you didn't get your steps in, you didn't do this, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, right? But obviously things is very much down to the individual, what's going on. But I remember my fat loss journey as well. It's very, obviously in the very beginning it was just curiosity about getting into amazing shape, right? So everyone has that kind of initial curiosity, and I was doing a sports science degree, so I was like, you know what, why not try and get into the amazing shape as well at the same time, with what I already know. But at the same time, what you know, let's say in a degree, isn't always going to be, you know, you don't, it's not exactly the same all the time. So you kind of go for the quick fix. And I did the same thing. And I was like, what is the best way to lose body fat, etc. And paleo was really big, at least 7 to 8 years ago, from what I remember. It may still be quite big now, but from what I can see, and again, my IG is pretty much small if you think about it, because what you follow is stuff, everyone's kind of in the same approach. But I remember, yeah, 7 years ago, it was like you'd go for it, and I was like, "Yep, this is going to be great." But I was in the same boat as you, Em. I was like, I wasn't as happy about it because I was like, "Yeah, this is great," but I felt there was something missing. And it was like, okay, I'm just cutting out these. Like I said, I got to 12 weeks, and I was like, yeah, I literally just cut carbs, but I don't know how I feel about it. So I felt empty about it. I don't know what it was, but I felt really, really empty about it. And then, you know, obviously it comes with education, and as you know, my years in the game has progressed, I realized, you know, this is the only approach. It's just going to be in a sustainable manner, but it has to be, you know, I have to have my carbohydrates, I have to have my protein, I have to have my fats. I can't afford to exclude any of them. And I know many who have joined, and who are starting their fat loss journey right now, have gone one shape or another, let's say over the last 20 years. You know, if you've been dieting like on and off for over 20 years, you have done that approach. You've gone an approach where it's Atkins, keto, paleo, whatever it is out there. But right now, I think 2020, the fitness industry is probably at the best where, you know, people are like, this is the right approach. I'm not seeing many who, like, anyone who does paleo keto and they really celebrate that, they still get called out, you know, from general science. And now it's in a much better approach. And I do feel like, you know, the fitness industry's, you know, only trending up with this approach, unless there's something new that pops up. Obviously we've got, you know, supplements. You saw the ketone stuff this week by, is it Daniel Lloyd?
Yeah.
Yeah, we saw that. That was another controversy, but you'll always get that from celebrities. But as celebrities, you're not going to get a science-based trainer or a research-based trainer potentially saying any of this stuff, which I think is quite cool. But what you, Nate? How did you kickstart? What triggered it initially?
Well, for me, it was I was reading the book The 4 Hour Body by Tim Ferriss, which was like, had some crazy stuff in there, like how to hold your breath for like 2+ minutes, how to like gain loads of muscle, how to be super super productive, and just random stuff. But then also had a diet in there, which was just basically eat very low calories for 6 days and then have one day really really high calories, which completely smoked me over in terms of my ability to have a good relationship with food. I didn't know anything about food. I just know that I needed to eat kidney beans and vegetables and some chicken, and that's what you could eat for unlimited amounts for 6 days, and then have whatever you wanted on the other days. So that kind of screwed me over. But you're right about the ketos and the. So I think that all of us can say that we don't see it, but I think there's a lot of it that we don't see because we're not in those circles anymore. The Daniel Lloyd thing today, last week, highlighted that there's a lot of people that with big followings that are just trying to make a buck, and unfortunately that's big followings will marginalize, and then you take 10% of those people that you have, and you have 150,000 people, and you promote a ketone supplement or a boom bod or whatever it is, and then you end up selling 20,000 ketone supplements, and unfortunately there are 20,000 people that are in that same boat that we're trying to pry away from utilizing those elements. So I think we don't see it because we don't want to see it. And I think that there's a lot of people that are being exposed to that. It's like that whole every middle-aged 30 lady who's had kids and is unconfident about the way that they look, but they've got a group of friends, and all that happens is one person in a group of friends has to do a diet, that they lose 10 kilos, and then all of the others are on it. It's like how our referrals are born, right? That's how our businesses are made, but in a good way as opposed to a negative way. It's the reverse referral, which is the I'm going to use a shit quick fix method, and then all my mates are going to use a quick shit method, and we're all going to end up fat in 6 months. It's like the reverse. It's the reverse diet.
We can cry together, basically.
Yeah, literally, they're all going to just sit and have an afternoon tea and fill themselves with scones and just bitch about how shit that diet was that they went on.
But the thing is, I would say with that, like now people are getting called out. Let's say 10 years ago, obviously there was social media, but it wasn't anything massive. It was obviously you had Facebook, but you know, if you look at it now, I'm thinking it's easy to call someone out. You just post it in your story, and then suddenly your followers see it. Like obviously, I think James Smith called out Daniel Lloyd, and then someone else called out Daniel Lloyd.
Darren did it too, and basically, exactly. Yeah, that guy is great, right? He just didn't stand for it, and effectively he get like 35,000 followers in 7 days, just gaining from just being more truthful and honest. But she ended up like backpedaling. I think the biggest thing is that there's more access to these influencers people now, because all you got to do is hit them up in the DMs or hit them up on the at thing, and then they get their notification, right? And if they get that notification, your followers will do the same too. But I'm glad to see that they are, and hopefully, I think this is probably the one step in the right direction towards probably getting things more governed within like what you can promote and what you can't promote. And hopefully that will lead to probably an explosion or like a complete like reduction in your ability to sell products like that don't have a commercial have a research backing. Like being able to sell supplements is absolutely fine, but selling supplements that don't work compared to what you're telling them to do is a violation.
Yeah, and that's dangerous as well, especially whoever consumes it. You know, if young girls are watching her stories or they're following her, I don't even know who Daniel Lloyd is, to be honest, but it just popped up on my kind of feeds and so on, and I was like, what's going on here? And then I forgot who else called him out, but I literally just saw it and I was like, yeah, holy shit. But she looked the same in the after picture as me, but there's no big changes.
You just left less bloated, right?
Yeah, and then everyone's just like, oh my God, this is an amazing transformation. Where it's like, come on, love. There's nothing there yet. But let's finish on quick tips for anyone who is going to be obviously starting off their journey. 2 or 3 quick tips from everyone. So let's go, Nate.
If it's not working and you're not either losing weight or getting better in terms of size, shape, or things are starting to move in the right direction, reassess what you're currently doing. Apply the method of like, you know, Pareto's rule of, you know, 80% of your efforts into 20% of the area and you'll get most of the results. So look at how much activity you're doing, look at your food intake, look at how much you're sleeping. And if you can focus on potentially those 3 areas and really confine them down to being more accurate and better, you'll get your results will start to skyrocket massively.
Yeah. Don't jump the gun and just decide that it isn't working just because you have 2 days of no movement either. I would say give it like a good week before you make those decisions. And if you do start a diet, know that you will most likely lose a lot of weight the first couple of weeks, and then it will naturally slow down. So don't just swap after the first 2 weeks because you feel like it's not moving as quickly. Be a little bit patient. And then if it stalls completely, as Nathan just said, like reassess what you're doing. Has anything changed in the last week? And then make some small adjustments. Doesn't have to be huge adjustments either, but like something small that will put you in the right direction. It's like the smallest effective dose, right?
Yep. That's what I'd say. Consistency. So aim to be better 1% every single day. And if you think about the whole year, that's 365 days of improvement, basically. So, you know, consistent, be patient. I think, you know, fat loss is sometimes a long game, especially if you've been overweight for 20 years. You know, don't expect a 6-week quick fix or 12-week quick fix. It's going to be a long-term approach. And again, for most people, it's understanding your own approach and understanding like what you want out from fat loss. If it is, you know, long-term sustainable approach, you know, make it, again, voice it to whoever you're going to be working with, as a coach or yourself. If it's like, you say to yourself, oh, look, I want a long-term approach, but then you're like, oh, this new diet looks great on Men's Health magazine or this magazine I've seen. you're just contradicting yourself. So, go with that, what I've just mentioned there, obviously all our tips as well. We'll be back next week with another topic as well. If you guys, want us to discuss anything specifically, hit us up on IG, or, drop us an email, whatever will work. So yeah, have a really, really good Thursday or weekend whenever you listen to this, and take care.